afraid you, gray scholars, might brainwash me. Do you know why so many people oppose me? It is because of their ignorance of my true desire. Ignorance invites fear. So these people are afraid of me. However, as you can see, I am just an ordinary man, not too tall and not too handsome. Although my wife thinks I am. But one thing is certain. I don't have horns and a tail. Many people ask me, Reverend Moon, why are you involved with the unity of the sciences? You are a minister of God, aren't you? My answer is yes. I am a minister of God. That's why I am interested in this unity of sciences. God is only the oldest preacher, and he is also the #1 scientist. That's true.
The Science Conference is just one of many projects inspired by the universality of Reverend Moon's vision. At the Unification Theological Seminary, many subjects are offered to prepare the students to be religious leaders. The teachers are clergymen and professors from several different theological persuasions. In 1975, Seoul, Korea, Reverend and Mrs. Moon performed the marriage of 1,800 couples from 20 nations. These church members share their conviction that the family centered on high moral principles is the foundation for a prosperous society. Concerned with dwindling food resources in the world, Reverend Moon is establishing ocean enterprises, primarily in fishing, fish processing, and shipbuilding, with the desire to help feed the world. Working at their side, Reverend Moon trains members through Ocean Challenge, a leadership program on the sea, strengthening individuals through fishing and teamwork in the marine field. Through a college movement, CARP, for the Collegiate Association for the Research of Principles, students can learn to live lives of high morals and good citizenship. Further, they are spirited voices on campuses, urging responsibility towards their nation's ideals and combating destructive leftist and Marxist ideology. Churches and foreign missionaries are active in over 127 nations of the world. Reverend Moon has taught that men and women sacrificing themselves for other nations, worshiping with and serving all races and social ranks, will show the example of God's love for all mankind. On the community level, Reverend Moon also is active, founding in 1967 the D.C. Striders Track Club. With several Olympic medalists springing from its ranks, the team has obtained over 1,000 school scholarships through its program of athletic and academic excellence. A daily newspaper, The News World, made its debut in New York City in 1976. Since that time, it has grown quickly to win its place in the city's media arena. It is an outspoken voice for human liberty and moral values and carries nationally known columnists. Reverend Moon, wanting to serve all people, created in 1980 a sister paper in Spanish, Noticias del Mundo. This paper serves all the Latin American nations that are represented in New York. Other daily papers in Japan and South America further fill the news and communications needs in those countries, as do many church magazines, newsletters, and books in several countries. Historically, new movements have never been easily accepted. The Unification Church is no exception. Moreover, international communists and leftists in America felt threatened by Reverend Moon's spectacular success. Some wanted to destroy him and his movement. Among them was Donald Fraser, chairman of the House Subcommittee on International Organizations, who saw his chance to advance his own political career. Early in 1978, Mr. Fraser subpoenaed Mr. Bo Hee-pak, special assistant to Reverend Moon. But it was Fraser's fatal mistake. Mr. Pak fearlessly defended his faith in the honor of Reverend Moon.
Your human right? Then where is my human right? Since I do not believe in an eye for eye, all I can do is pray for you. You shall surely reap what you have sown. This is a lie. You are the author of this information. And you gave this lie to the power of the United States Congress. This is the worst character assassination possible. You did this to the man who came to America to do the work of God and save his country from immorality. I cannot help but believe that you are being used as instrument of the devil. You, yes, instrument of the devil. I said it. Who else would want to destroy a man of God but the devil? Do you think you can become a senator at the cost of the blood, honor, and the lives of innocent people? You will find innocent blood very costly. I say to you what St. Thomas, who had been brought to trial on the charges of treason by Henry VIII, sticking to his own religious conviction, said to Sir Richard, who had perjured himself in testimony against St. Thomas in order to advance his own career, even at the cost of the saint's blood. Quoting Jesus, St. Thomas said, "For what will it profit a man if he gain the whole world and forfeit his soul?" For this he was beheaded. Mr. Chairman, I know it is easy and unpopular in the short run to prosecute new religious groups. So it was for Nero, so it was for Julian the Apostate. But does history remember them for their social reform, or foreign policy, or even human rights? No, it remembers them as a great persecutor in history. And so history might remember Donald Fraser, if it remembers him at all. You may get my scalp, Mr. Chairman. Go ahead. But never my heart and soul. My heart and soul belong to God. The Lord is my shepherd. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Finally, justice was done. Mr. Fraser, who had abused his power, lost a senatorial primary election. But it was not an ordinary defeat. On election eve, victory seemed imminent. But during the night, a miracle had been quietly in the making. When Fraser woke the next morning, he found he had lost by a small margin. It was an unbelievable upset defeat. Mr. Fraser's attempt to use Reverend Moon and the Unification Church for political gain backfired. In the end, truth prevailed. In Seoul, Reverend Moon broke his long silence and asked his church to forgive Mr. Fraser and pray for his soul. But, he added, Mr. Fraser's defeat was more than political fortune. It was an act of God. Mr. Fraser had been oppressing others besides the Unification Church. With the help of his opposition to the governments of several South American nations, the Congress and administration had frozen relations with a number of countries. When Reverend Moon sent Bo Hee-pak to those nations, he was received as a hero. Now there are teaching staffs being sent to all countries in Latin America to educate the citizens of the danger of communism, which is trying to subvert the governments in power. Causa will be a movement that will overcome communism through the teaching Unificationism, already presented in 7 major countries.
Finally, Reverend Sun Myung Moon, the author and the pioneer of Unificationism, the founder of Causa International, and the one who has led our battle against communism for 30 years, asked me to convey to all of you that his very best wishes and fervent prayers. He especially asked me to say to you, Unificationism has put the communists on the defensive for the first time in 63 years. Together, we shall be triumphant. God is on our side. Thank you.
Probably the fact least known by the public is that Reverend Moon is a strong believer in the family. He is the father of 12 children, 7 boys and 5 girls. His youngest, Yunjin, was born February 7th of 1981. In Korean, her name means the advancement of beauty. With Reverend and Mrs. Moon, it is an important tradition to offer their new child to God in hopes that she will grow to become a benefit to the world. Reverend Moon feels the family should be centered around the love of God and that all mankind is an extension of the family. In this way, it is possible to feel that all people are brothers and sisters. Reverend Moon is not only a father and teacher to his own children, but to his followers as well. He is a believer in the personal care and involvement necessary to give a spiritual education as well as a practical one.
하나님을 아버지로 모신 것을 이것을 무엇보다 하나님은 내 아버지다. 이게 무엇보다도 자랑할 것이었다.
The first and foremost supreme pride of man in the world of perfection is to have God as my Father. The saying that God is my Father. Don't you know that Almighty God is my Father? That's the most greatest pride of man.
그게 그 첫 번째고 둘째는 무엇이겠느냐?
And the number 2, that is the first pride. And what is the
그
second?
하나님의 사랑을 내가 독차지할 수 있다. 하나님의 사랑을 받을 수 있는 아들딸이다.
Man's second supreme pride is this, that I can possess the love of God. I can have enough, in other words, I can monopolize the love of God. That's pride.
그 다음에 셋째 번은 뭐겠느냐?
The third pride,
하나님이 갖고 있는 모든 전부 이 우주를 내가 상속받을 수 있는 것이
and it is my pride in the world of perfection that I can inherit God's kingdom. I can inherit everything that God has, my Father has. It has become mine. It's ours.
그 자랑할 만해?
Isn't that truly the worth to be proud of?
세상 사람 같은 뭐 아무게 뭐 여기 무슨 부잣집 사후가 돼도 그 아무게 사후가 되더라고 말이야. 사랑이 많다고요.
Yeah, so in our world, there are so many social standards, and that many people are proud of. My father is so-and-so. My father is PhD, doctor of Harvard. My father is a prime minister. I come from the royal family of Sweden or something. It's become a great pride. Think of it. When you say, my father is God.
Now, I think
Dr.
that,
Herbert
the
Richardson.
of Reverend Moon's whole appeal to you is that he touches their hearts, what they feel the ideal is, and in a way, therefore, he calls them to reach beyond the very best that people can come to merely by thinking, right? And this is the greatness. I think so much of youth today, their hearts haven't been touched. We can say, or their hearts are really touched by quite base things. And the heart can be touched by the ideal. And that's where I think the greatness of Reverend Moon is to be found, in his understanding of the problem of youth.
From early in life, Reverend Moon felt called by God to fulfill a seemingly impossible task. His lifetime was spent diligently, with untiring determination to carry out what he felt was his covenant with God. Through a deep longing to see an end to the suffering of mankind, he committed himself to a life of personal sacrifice in order to bring hope and the love of God to others. This love for God and mankind has given him the strength and inspiration to face and overcome tremendous obstacles that have been a part of his life. In the course of his life, he has had to fulfill many roles: as a teacher, a father, a husband, a leader, a prophet, a builder of God's kingdom, and some say a Messiah. If he is a Messiah, it is in the sense that he has tried with all of his heart and soul to carry out the will of God. In this way, Reverend Moon has served as a model for the thousands of men and women around the world who follow him. Through the example of his own life of faith, they have been inspired to embrace a noble ideal and live a life for the love and service of God and mankind.